It's time for The Story Behind the Person, featuring lively, in-depth conversation with compelling guests from our community. And here is our host, Jonathan Van Bilsen.
Hello and welcome to this episode. My guest today is Robert Rock, a councillor for the township of Scugog. We'll learn all about Robert as well as what it's like to be in municipal politics. We'll be right back after these messages.
Not all Canadians have the time or desire to manage their finances. That's where we come in, helping Canadian families plan for a secure, happy, and successful future. Visit our website at www.teamfg.ca.
At Voss, your independent grocer, it's all about hometown living and shopping. Owned and operated by Terry and Christine Voss, their newly renovated Port Perry store carries many local items to support our town and its residents.
Welcome back. My guest, as I mentioned, is Robert Rock, the councillor for Ward 3 in Scugog Township, which is primarily the island. Robert, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jonathan. Pleasure to be here.
So you've been doing this now for, what, 6 years?
4 years.
4 years. And so you're getting your feet wet, to say the least.
Yes.
I'm sure it's got its moments, challenging, and I'm sure a few times you sort of, bang your head against a wall, and it feels really good when you stop. But you probably got into it for all the right reasons. We're going to get into that stuff. First, I wanted a little bit about yourself.
Sure.
Because a lot of people don't really know much about you other than what they see in the newspapers and
absolutely.
such. So you're originally from Windsor.
That's correct, yeah. So born and raised just outside of Windsor. My grandparents had a 100-acre farm, which I grew up working on the farm as a good farm boy does out in the country and the outside of Windsor. Had racehorses and riding horses and spent a lot of time, baling hay and mucking stalls and going for fun horse rides. And just you learn some of the hard graft and ethics of labor when you're out on a big farm all the time. So that was my grandparents lived very, very near to where we were. So I spent a lot of time with them, and we would go a lot and help out and work and have fun. But
it's a great life, though, isn't it?
It was fantastic life.
It's rewarding, and it's fresh air, and it's so much fun. That you can have, right?
Absolutely, and it's a good time. I mean, beyond the farm, my grandfather also had a 2 kilometer by 1 kilometer forest. So as a small kid, and it had a river, a little creek that ran through it. So it was a sort of endless
100-acre woods.
Yeah, it was an endless stage of wonder to just be a little kid and be running around in your own kind of private forest that no one had. Wow. Messing around in the creek and stuff like that, and then you get a little bit older and you get four-wheelers and you get snowmobiles and you get dirt bikes and you just tear around in there and have a great time. So it was
a lot better than going to the mall every weekend, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Which is not really something that we often did.
Do you get to go back there? Do you get to go back there very often? Is the farm gone?
Unfortunately, when my grandparents passed away, the decision was made to sell the farm. I wish I had been a little older at that time. Yeah. My mother being the youngest of 10, so I was still quite young at the time it happened. I was 22 years old when that happened. So really not in a position to purchase a 100-acre farm to keep that legacy going. But
and the reality too is like, what do you do with a 100-acre farm?
They farmed it. It was
but
cash
if you don't want
cropping.
to be a farmer, then you've sort of got this piece of land that's costing you a fortune, right?
Exactly.
It's an interesting Windsor. I find it an interesting town right now because it's in the news so much with all the stuff that's going on with the U.S.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are suffering in Windsor. Do you have a lot of family still there? Or
my mother and my brother and niece and nephew are all still there. So I go down usually a couple times a year. My oldest son was working down there as well, so it was another reason to be down there. Right. So go down there quite a bit. Windsor isn't. That kind of controversy isn't new for Windsor. That is through my entire life been the ups and downs of Windsor is all turns on the whim of how the auto industry was doing. I mean, you have all 3 major manufacturers, Ford, GM, and Chrysler's, all having plants there. So, the town's always kind of lived and died by how the auto industry is doing. When it's doing well, and the casino now. I mean, that's later times for me, back when I was younger and still living there, It wasn't, unfortunately, there. It was just coming into a much smaller location than it was.
Right.
They took over a Holiday Inn on the river when they first opened it. Instead of
Really?
building a facility, they just retrofitted a hotel on the water to test it out. But so there's always been a cycle in that town of when the industry is up, everybody is flush
Right.
with cash because they're working 7 days a
Of
week
course, of
and
course.
working overtime, and it also meant all of the ancillary businesses within the town were doing extremely well.
Not to mention things like hockey clubs that get donations and things like that.
Hockey
right?
clubs
All
that
those
get
sort of stuff,
donations, all of those sort of things. I mean, it's just the ripple effect. At a very young age, you can see how ebbs and flows of business doesn't just necessarily affect the business. If Chrysler has a downturn or goes on strike, it's not just the people who work there.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
all of the
absolutely.
feeders into that, right? All of the manufacturers, all of the parts makers, and all of the bars, restaurants, and
It's a third of the town
others.
when you have three industries. And
Absolutely.
I remember when Bata pulled out of Batawa sort of thing.
Yeah.
Suddenly there's no Batawa left, right? There's no town left.
Yeah, exactly.
But,
So,
yeah.
there's definitely been those contractions, and, it'll continue for forever.
Right.
I don't see it ever escaping that cycle just because of the just such the massive impact that it has within the town.
And that- won't change.
And that won't change. I mean, it's like any town, I think, in North America, or even, probably around the world, as, we move on in time. The ups don't get quite as high and the lows get a little bit lower.
Yeah.
So
True,
it's
true,
the
true.
unfortunate trend that we're seeing just when it comes to being in a city, that there is a natural sort of degrading of the environments there. But
Yeah.
it's a fantastic town. Most of my misbegotten youth was spent in Detroit.
Yeah.
Almost half of my aunts married Americans.
Really?
So we were always in the U.S. visiting family, being at family events. And with a lot of the things that I did, it required me to be in Detroit a lot. So, just constantly, spending a good portion of my especially younger life being in the States, being in
I'm
Michigan,
sure that
and
happens
in
to
the
a lot
environment.
of border towns, right? A lot of.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, and you worked for a radio station in Windsor.
Yeah, I had a lot of interesting jobs when I was in university. So I worked at Chrysler's 3 days a week. They have a program called Temporary Part-Time, TPT,
Okay.
and worked there on the midnight shift, which is great because you really learn that sort of manufacturing hard graft, sort of the heart blood of that. Of the city, especially Windsor,
Right.
because so many people are in that situation. And when I wasn't doing that, I had a radio show at CGM, and it was a great time. I had a bunch of different slots. My preferred slot, because when I worked at Chrysler's, I worked midnight, so I kind of spent a lot of my years living almost like a vampire. So
Right, I was going to say that's an education itself.
It is. So I would always take the late night shifts because it also meant that you were able to skirt some of the CRTC rules, which were a lot more important back then. So
I did a midnight show in Owen Sound, and then I went to
Yeah.
a morning show in Toronto at the station, and it was an eye opener.
Yes.
But,
Well, it used to be fun things where you would get called in and say, hey, there was an evaluation of the show and you didn't get enough CanCon in.
Right.
It's got to be X amount. So, you just tongue-in-cheek and just, trying to be a bit of a disturber.
Yeah.
I would literally just come on and say, hey, coming up is your CanCon block. So take that for what it is. And then, just...
Yeah. So you had a couple of jobs. You also started moving around a bit. So
Yeah.
what prompted, what business were you in? When you were...
So at the end of university, I was accepted into a program called Student Work Abroad. So it's a specialized program that is a collection of different countries. At the time I was doing it, I believe it was 14 countries that share visas. So everybody who's accepted into that specialized program is given a choice of these 14 countries to get a visa. All of them have different lengths of visas and all of those are good things. So I chose the UK because that was one, easier on the language,
I was gonna say,
and being a lover of all things British.
Right.
You know, friends of my parents were British, and a lot of my friends were British. So,
Okay.
you know, watching VHS tapes that got sent over from the UK to watch BBC and early ITV at the time, you know, it just made sense. And I had traveled to the UK a couple of times before moving there. So yeah, moved to the UK, lived in London, lived in Fulham before I got a professional, before the Fulham club was in the Premier League and owned by a billionaire. But it was lovely. I loved
was that like a
living
2-week
there.
thing, a month thing? Or?
No, I was there in 92 and 93.
Oh, so it's quite a...
Yeah, it was a good time. Yeah, it was a great time. So, yeah, and then when coming back, didn't make sense to go from London to all the way back to Windsor. It felt a little bit small.
Well,
so
I mean, London's a very cosmopolitan city.
it's the lure of the cosmopolitan city, but you know, the transportation links are so amazing. So you are in a very rural place in almost a blink of an eye.
Yeah.
So London is a city of which you can take whatever you want from it, whether you want that or not.
Plus it has the history too. I mean, you got the Tower of London, you got Buckingham Palace, you got all these pubs. I was in a pub once, and they were celebrating their 500th anniversary.
Oh yeah,
I mean, it's crazy, and it was a normal thing for them, right?
Well, I was down in Brighton, for example, when I was there, and there's a pub in Brighton that was the last stop for the Crusaders as they were sailing out from down there. So you know, it had been a continuously operating pub since the 1218 or something like that is what the sign said. So when you really think of the scope of time of, you know, operating as a pub at that point for hundreds and hundreds of years, you know, how many, if those walls could talk, how many amazing stories would you hear?
And people don't actually own it anymore. They're just caretakers of it. You know?
Yeah, I think it gets to some of these things get to a point where it needs to exist because it is the very fabric of a community.
Fortunately, England has relaxed its zoning laws recently, so that people can buy old buildings and renovate them into different things, which is good. Right?
Yeah, there's actually a number of TV shows that focus on that in the UK.
What did you do when you were there? Like, you must have worked or something.
Yeah, I did. I worked in a bookstore. In London for a long time. I'm a big reader and lover of books, so I worked there for a while, and I worked in a pub, which was fantastic. Worked in a pub in Fulham, and it's, I could not, if anybody is thinking about living there or, you know, curious about living there, I can't more highly suggest working in a pub because you will get so much more flavor of an existing culture by working in a pub, just because you're meeting everybody. And it's hard to explain to somebody who hasn't traveled there or hasn't spent an extended period of time there that pub life is, that culture is really the heartbeat for most of the people who live there. I know it's changing over time, but back in the early 90s especially, if you didn't show up local, people actually would come knock on your door. So before I was working in a pub, there's a pub that, you know, we went to all the time, and you know, I'd been not feeling well and a couple of other things going on, and hadn't been to the pub in almost a week, and literally somebody knocked on the door.
That's funny. That's funny.
And so the door, they're like, hey, we just wanted to check on you because we hadn't seen you. We were worried something was wrong and wanted to see if you needed something or you needed some help. Yeah, so it's a deeply a way of life there. So
we're going to pause. We're going to take a commercial break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about the political side of things. Right? Stay with us. We'll be back right after these messages.
Pet Value has a fleet of services to help you and your pet live their very best lives. Visit Pet Value in Port Perry to discover a world of expertise, friendly staff, and everything you need for your pets. Pet Value, your pet, your store.
Top care with top stylists. Book your next hair appointment with Port Perry's award-winning hair salon, Rosario Greco Styles. The hair experience you deserve. Book today. Call 905-985-0099.
At PP Print and Digital Services, we're excited to announce the expansion of our services to include comprehensive point-of-sale display solutions. Let us help you create a compelling in-store presence and ensure your products reach your customers effectively.
Welcome back. My guest is Robert Rock. He's the councillor for Ward 3 in Scugog. Robert, welcome back. We've had a great conversation about your life in the UK, which I knew nothing about, the fact that you're from Windsor, and then you end up in Port Perry.
Yes.
And that's a normal, I guess, people leave London, they gravitate to Port Perry.
Absolutely.
Right?
That was it was a part of the itinerary,
exactly.
an agenda I'd received while I was there.
But you moved back to Toronto.
I lived in the beaches for a number of years, and you have young kids, and you want them to have more space to run around and to grow.
Yeah.
So moved
you don't need
out.
a lawnmower in the beaches.
No, exactly. So just moving to places, and then we got to a point where we were empty nesters, and we were living in Whitby at the time, and we were actually looking for a cottage. And we couldn't really find anything that we wanted because we had spent so many years spending every weekend driving kids to sports. So all of our kids pretty much played sports, and your whole life for 10, 12 years was consumed by driving kids to sports every single night of the week, every weekend at things. So
you get to know the Holiday Inns and the Comfort Inns.
So we were just looking to get back into that, know, having had a family cottage in Grand Bend for a number of years before the kids started sports all the time. You just kind of get used to that rhythm of, spending time at the cottage and hanging out and that kind of thing. So we wanted to get a cottage, and we couldn't really find anything that we liked, to be honest. And eventually it was like, well, why don't we buy a house that we can live in and can also be a cottage, because we don't need to be near schools, we don't need to be near sports.
It's a lot more economical and a lot less work to have to maintain two places. Absolutely.
And that's what led us here.
So you were in the mediation business? Is that?
So when I'm not doing my counselor duties, we do mediation and arbitration. So my partner Julie, she started a mediation arbitration business 16 years ago called Families First Mediation, and it's always been predominantly focused on separation divorce. But
that was my next question. What sort of mediation?
So I've done all the training years ago now to be both a mediator and an arbitrator, and do that as well. So focusing, the company has sort of grown and shifted over years. So Julie is one of 10 advanced elder mediators in Canada. So there are not a lot of them that are practicing. So a lot of the practice now is focused on elder mediation and just really dealing with elder issues. So from a bunch of different varieties of and angles.
And people would go to a mediator because it's much cheaper than going to a lawyer, right?
Much cheaper.
And lawyers probably use mediators.
Some of them do. Some of them do. Some of them don't. It's cost and it's speed. If you're going through the legal process now, depending upon what you're going through, you're looking at 18 months to 3 years.
And very expensive.
And very expensive. Mediation, again, everything is always situational. Not everything can be solved in mediation. Not everything needs to go to the courts. Right? There's always that gray area from an intake perspective to say, is this something that can be solved through mediation, or are you interested in arbitration, which is a quasi judicial way of getting that done without actually going to a judge. An arbitrator can make a final decision on something. So it's really just different grades and phases of where people are, the severity of what they're looking at, how angry they are is often.
I was going to say that usually plays a big part in, right? Like if people would get along, there wouldn't be any need for you.
Well, there's the difference between getting along, and there's the difference between wanting to make someone pay for something, what I mean? For whatever perceived thing that they may have done.
But if people get out of a relationship, it's not always amicable.
It's not always amicable, but we also are often fed from a cultural perspective that is always people at each other's throats. And often that's just not the case. I mean, there's such a variety of reasons why people choose to no longer be a couple. Not all of them are acrimonious. Some of them are, we just got here. And how do we easily, quickly take care of each other, take care of ourselves, and move on with our lives?
You must have some great conversations at the dinner table.
So it's funny. You have to sometimes be each other's therapist after.
Right, of course. Some of those jobs, like I don't know how people do it. I really don't.
Yeah.
So you You're also in the digital media business, right, for a long time.
For a long time, yeah.
Because I think when we first met, which would have been about 7 years ago, something like that, you were doing that. And that business, I guess, kind of changed a lot with COVID and so forth.
It did. I mean, I love digital marketing. I mean, getting in the digital marketing field in 2010. So really sort of at the cusp of when it was really starting to grow, and spending a lot of time working with companies of all sizes, whether it's small mom and pop, or owner operators, all the way up to working with multinationals on a variety of different things. I mean, at the beginning, it was more focused on platforms.
Right.
And then as time goes on and matures, I mean, still to this day a little bit, it's a bit of the Wild West, because there's not really any form or structure around it.
With AI coming into its own.
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely. So for myself, I had spent years doing sales and marketing for multinational companies. So I work for CIBC Mellon Bank, which is a joint venture between CIBC Bank and Bank of New York Mellon. And I spent, over a decade working with them, and doing, director of business development for them. So when you're working in those multinationals, you understand a rhythm of large deals. So working with those kind of large organizations, you learn about the sales and marketing end of it, just because it's the lifeblood of what those organizations do, and just applying some of that. So as it matured over time and moving away from being platform and helping people remember that the operative word in digital marketing is marketing, and the principles of marketing don't change. The avenues you're using for the marketing message do. So really, sort of pulling back from the how can we create this Facebook campaign for you, which there are plenty of amazing people who are doing that, and really more focused on, what is your go-to-market strategy? What is your client journey, right? What is
a lot of people use the vehicle as the message, and it's not.
It's not. Yeah.
So you woke up one day and said, "Hey, I want to be a counselor."
No, no, I did not. No, it just like many things in my life, it just kind of ends up there. I've always been very politically active. That is not something new. Always been extremely interested in politics. Growing up in a very politically active family. My father, part of the CEW for Chryslers back at the time. So, just constantly around that type of environment, and always having what I would refer to as spirited conversations with my father as we disagreed between the NDP philosophy and my philosophy at the time. So
when you got into council, was it an eye-opener where you sort of you knew what to expect? Did you plan to change the world and found out it wasn't?
I think everybody. I have been around politics long enough to know that you're never going to change the world, and you're never going to do anything on your own.
And politics, you're not going to do it very quickly.
And you're not going to do it very quickly. Politics is around working with the team. Right. And as much as everyone may have strong opinions about things, those strong opinions aren't what matters. It's the, leaning on my other hat of the mediation. It's what is the path that the majority of people can find that decision on. And I have to say, when I look around Durham region, I feel pretty blessed with the council that we have. I think everybody on this council is all there for the right reasons. They're there to see this community flourish, to see this community be the best possible community it can be. And I truly believe that everybody on council feels that way. I don't think that they're not.
A lot of them have been here for a long time.
Oh, absolutely. Too, right? Well, many people on council have lived here their whole lives. That's right. So obviously they have a buy-in to that. And, I always find it interesting, and I tell the story of Port Perry is unique in my life experiences, having lived in different places around the world, in different places around Ontario, and spending a lot of time traveling through the US. This is the only place I've ever been that people introduced themselves to me when I first moved here by how long their family had lived here.
Wow.
And I still see it. I still see people preface something that they'll say by, well, I moved here in 1993, and
Yeah.
it's just an interesting uniqueness to me that there's this sort of feeling that somebody has to share that. And I was joking with somebody when I first really sunk in. I'm like, wow, I've never noticed that before.
Yeah.
And I was just joking with a friend. I said, I don't remember when I lived in Fulham meeting somebody on the street saying my family lived here since the 1100s.
That's amazing.
And I just think I think that to me that shows how strong a community spirit
and
is
pride,
here.
Right?
Pride in this community. Like the people who move here, whether you're a third generation person who moved here or whether you moved here 2 years ago, people who move here love this community.
Absolutely.
And I mean, that's why I chose to live here. I mean, having visited here lots of times over life, you fall in love with the city. And that's kind of part of what led me to put my name in to replace Angus when Angus was leaving, because I love this community. I truly love where I live. I love this community. I love the things that we have access to, and I want to see this community succeed.
I won't put you on the spot and ask if you're going to run in the next election, but no, really, I won't. But you do enjoy what you're doing, I take it.
Yeah, I mean, like any other job that anybody has, you have great days and you have bad days.
Well, I mean, it's got to hit you when you're trying to do something really good and some idiot calls you up about the stupidest thing, and important to them. Yeah. But in the scope of life, it's
and I think if you're around politics long enough, you know
become
that.
Thick-skinned, right?
You become thick-skinned, but you also I always take that beat whenever because it's. To me, it's not about how I process how important that is. Right. That is deeply important to them, which is why they've sent that email. That's why they've made that phone call. Whether I agree with it, I don't agree with it, it doesn't matter.
My grandfather used to have a great saying that there's no future in being right if your boss is wrong. But unfortunately, our time has come to an end. It went very quickly. We could go on about this for a long time.
We could.
I had a whole bunch of notes here about stuff, so I have to do another show sometime.
All right.
And follow up with it.
Fantastic.
Thank you very much for being here today. I appreciate it.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
And thank you all for watching. Please join us every month right here for the story behind the person.